Celebrity culture is toxic. Yeah, I know. I'm like a modern-day Copernicus with that statement. Over the years, South Park has made plenty of jokes at the expense of celebrities.
Hey guys, check it out! Tom Cruise is a fudge packer!
They even have a disclaimer that plays before almost every episode about their use of celebrity impersonations. Despite their love for bashing famous people, in 2008 they made an episode that perfectly encapsulates the toxicity of celebrity culture. Britney's New Look. This is one of the most polarizing South Park episodes in the show's history. This isn't just me talking out of my ass either. Trey Parker said it himself.
In the top 5 of what we call polarizing episodes. This is one of those shows where it's basically people totally loved it and it's one of their favorite shows, or people just totally hated it.
When this episode was being advertised, Britney Spears was at a low point in her life. Fans of the show heard they were doing a Britney Spears episode and they expected her to be the butt of a joke, completely roasted for her public freakouts, her new hairstyle, and many other questionable decisions at the time. Instead, they delivered an episode that portrays her as a victim, highlighting how a large portion of society fails to see celebrities as human beings. They bully, harass, and humiliate them until they're driven to, well, you know, it's pretty much undeniable that substance abuse, depression, body image issues, and similar struggles are all too common among celebrities. Now, does this mean celebrities should be immune to criticism and backlash? Absolutely f***ing not. A lot of rich, powerful, famous people are genuinely terrible human beings. And this South Park episode isn't defending them. It just highlights how toxic the media and society can be in their obsession with celebrities. Liam Payne of One Direction just recently passed away, who could be viewed as another victim of this. I mean, hours after his death, the rats at TMZ posted a picture of his body. They only showed his tattoos to confirm it. It's not like they pulled a Logan Paul or anything. I mean, at least they have some morals, right? That's sarcasm, by the way, if you didn't catch that. Okay, cool. When this episode was released, social media was in its infancy. Facebook was still for old people, Reddit wasn't a complete echo chamber yet, and you didn't have millions of fan accounts on Twitter ready to dox someone for saying Taylor Swift isn't that great of an artist. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that celebrity culture has only gotten worse since. Like Trey said, this is one of those episodes that you either love or hate. It's poorly ranked on IMDb when you compare it to other South Park episodes, so let's break it down and find out why. Before we get started, make sure to check if you're subscribed. The only sponsors I've been offered, I would literally feel bad trying to promote to you guys. So instead of selling you on a product to shave your balls or a predatory mobile game, a like on the video would suffice. But let's get into our episode analysis. The episode begins with Randy and the boys watching the 2008 presidential debate. Did that rhyme? That was weird. The boys obviously don't care about this at all.
You boys should care about this stuff.
Yeah, but we totally don't.
Suddenly, the broadcast is interrupted.
It's Britney Watch, keeping you up to date with all your Britney Spears news.
Randy's excitement here just kills me for some reason. In the news report, Britney was exposed by the media for taking a piss on a ladybug. Truly an unforgivable, sadistic act. Lock her up immediately. The news reporters then comment on her weight gain and appearance.
That's right, Ron. She really chubbed up. Got some zits.
Poor girl.
Butters once again proving that he is too good for this world. The broadcast goes on to say that the man who took the pictures was paid $100,000, which obviously gets the boys' attention.
That's enough to buy slaves!
Kyle tells Cartman to go get his camera so they can get pictures of Britney and make a bunch of money. I mentioned this in my Cartman Sucks video that Trey likes to show hints that Cartman is actually really into photography, and this is more proof. He's the only one that owns a camera despite being the poorest out of the 4 boys. Kenny isn't in this episode. Anyways, Butters feels bad for Britney and says that the media has gone too far and they should just leave Britney alone. Leave Britney alone. Does that sound familiar? They say that line a few times throughout this episode. It's definitely a reference to this viral meme from 2007. Headphone warning, by the way.
Leave Britney alone! Please!
2 episodes after this one, they even gave this person a cameo when they did the bit on viral YouTube videos of the time, which was the golden age of YouTube, and you can't change my mind. During this time, things went viral because they spread by word of mouth, and it was always something original. Now, YouTube is calculated, formulaic, and based on algorithms. Okay, I sound like a boomer, but if you missed this era of YouTube, it was special. Back to the episode. After convincing Butters to help, the boys decide that to make money, they're gonna get a picture of Britney Spears defecating on a squirrel. When they show up to her hotel room, they're annoyed to learn that there's hundreds of paparazzi also trying to get pictures of her. Let's talk about paparazzi for a minute. This has gotta be one of the most soul-sucking professions out there. Their job basically involves snapping photos or videos of famous people, often crossing privacy lines and selling those shots to tabloids, news outlets, and more recently, social media platforms. I would assume celebrities have a love-hate relationship with paparazzi. On one hand, the exposure can boost their careers, but on the other hand, who wants to be stalked in public every day and asked ridiculous questions? The crazier the shot, the more money they can make, and this often leads to them asking brain-dead or triggering questions just to get a reaction. In Britney's case, the paparazzi was quite literally accelerating the decline of her mental health. And you know the sick part about it is they loved it. It's just more money for them. Who cares if she has to go to a mental hospital or worse? I mean, this is life-changing money, right? I think when it comes to paparazzi, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, like taking pictures of their kids or asking about traumatic past events. But if we're being honest, society is also to blame for their behavior, and I'm not blind to that. If our culture didn't care so much about the personal lives of famous people, paparazzi wouldn't exist at all. Personally, I would rather shovel animal feces for a living than resort to this. But if it's the only way you can feed your family, I guess. I'm actually interested to hear your guys' opinion about paparazzi. I know this is a controversial topic and not everyone will agree with it, so let me know. Back to the episode. When the boys realize that nobody is allowed to see Britney, they come up with the idea of pretending to be her kids. Well, except Butters.
Not me. I'm a squirrel.
Britney actually does have 2 kids, but they were like 2 and 3 years old at this time, which actually makes this funnier. She gets really excited when she hears that her kids are there to visit and asks for them to be brought inside. The boys, lacking some serious empathy here, decide how to get the picture while Butters is fighting them on why what they're doing is wrong. Since Butters won't help them, Cartman says,
All right, lady, just flash us your crotch or something.
and then Britney says that she has a better idea.
No!
Sorry, but the way Cartman bolts out of the room like that is just hilarious to me, and I don't know why. The next scene shows Stan and Kyle at the hospital feeling extremely guilty about what happened.
We should have just left her alone. But we just had to push her. How could we know she would...
Their attitude here is something that is all too relatable in our society. I'm not even talking specifically about celebrities here. A lot of people are perfectly fine with bullying, harassing, and exploiting people, but the moment tragedy strikes is when they finally start to feel empathy. It's pretty sad that it takes an attempt like this to make the boys realize that what they were doing is wrong, but I love how they wrote it, because this is how a large portion of society is. And Matt and Trey were trying to show that. The doctor arrives with news saying that Britney survived, and the boys are obviously relieved. They ask if they can go apologize to her. So sadly, the rest of this video, Britney has to be censored because while she did survive, most of her head is missing. And when I say most, I mean almost all of it. YouTube likes to look for any excuse to age restrict South Park videos, so I'm sorry. The boys attempt an apology and all she can really do is make those noises, and the satire from here on out is something that a lot of people cannot handle. So buckle up, friends. In the next scene, we see the new media report on Britney Watch, where the reporter says,
The troubled pop star has just been spotted with a crazy, no top part of my head look.
He goes on to mention absolutely nothing at the attempt on her own life, but that there's now finally proof that she has had plastic surgery. The obvious joke is that everyone is too obsessed with the next Britney scandal to even notice that half of her head is missing. I personally find humor in that, but I can see why some people might think the satire here is a bit excessive, even for South Park. Her manager walks in the room and of course has no sympathy, even asking why she decided to go for this new look. The paparazzi is becoming increasingly more savage, so they try to sneak Britney out of the hospital and they notice her. I always thought this was a hilarious portrayal of paparazzi, but had no idea it was actually a movie reference. It's apparently from a film called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, this movie looks wild, but the ratings are pretty good. Might have to check it out. The paparazzi start swarming Britney's car, which honestly isn't satire at all. I've seen real life situations where they're willing to stand in front of a running car just to get a picture. Stan and Kyle then say that they want to help Britney as much as they can, and the manager suggests that they just need to get her back in the studio. Putting the satire aside, it's pretty common for a manager to not have the artist's best interest. Most managers are paid through a commission-based structure, which can be great for business, don't get me wrong, but really problematic in situations like this. Again, I know it's just a joke by South Park, but there are managers who couldn't care less about their artist. They arrive at the recording studio and it goes pretty much how you would expect. The employees there start roasting her for how terrible she sounds, and of course, Stan and Kyle are the only ones who acknowledge the fact that, she's missing 75% of her head.
No, I mean she literally doesn't have most of her brain. Her head is gone.
Yeah, and she's all fat, too.
Britney is then forced to perform at the MTV Music Awards, another thing that isn't satire for Britney Spears. Something I haven't talked about yet is Britney's conservatorship case. A conservatorship is basically a legal arrangement where a judge appoints a person to manage the financial and personal affairs of another person. This usually happens when the person has a mental or physical limitation. As we talked about earlier, Britney's mental health was spiraling at the time, and this seemed like an idea many people wouldn't argue against. In Britney's case, however, her father and attorney were appointed as her conservators. What could go wrong? She detailed many instances where she was forced to work and perform, and was threatened with lawsuits and lifestyle restrictions if she didn't cooperate. She would sometimes not be allowed to see her own children, which is part of the reason she spiraled in the first place, when K-Fed, her first husband, did the same exact thing to her. This all went on for over a decade, by the way. I personally have no bias for or against Britney. I mean, I was a literal child when her music was at its peak, but honestly, learning about this case made me view her in a different light. Her entire life after 2007 could be the script of a horror movie. This case is really deep, and I make South Park videos, so I can't cover it all, but I encourage you to learn more about it before judging her for some of the weird stuff she's done over the years. Back to the episode though. Her MTV performance is obviously a disaster.
Oh man, she's totally lip syncing.
She doesn't have any lips.
By this point, Stan and Kyle can't take it anymore and decide that they need to save Britney from the situation. Stan says he has an idea of a place to take her where nobody will bother her.
We want 3 tickets to the North Pole.
As they're trying to escape, they get caught by the media. And of course, instead of the media talking about anything substantial, they latch on to something else.
Has total camel toe.
Walk around with that kind of cam toe and you're gonna turn heads.
It's a slap in the face to camels all over the planet.
Before the news report ends, we learn that Butters was taken by animal control and given psychiatric evaluation for thinking he's a human, when he's clearly a squirrel. Okay, but in all seriousness, it feels like Matt and Trey realized in the middle of the episode that Butters would definitely be helping Stan and Kyle. So they had to throw this in to give a reason for why Butters isn't seen again. That's just a South Park nerd's conspiracy theory though. I can't prove it. And Cartman doesn't really need an explanation for not being in the rest of the episode. He probably didn't even lose sleep over what happened to Britney. While trying to escape to the North Pole, they get caught by paparazzi. Kyle has the idea to wear Britney's disguise and lure them away, which works for some reason because in South Park, all adults have negative IQs. The media finally catches up to Kyle and one of the news reporters realizes he's a fraud.
Hey, wait a minute. Where's her camel toe?
Kyle starts giving one of his gay little speeches about how he was guilty of being like them, but that their actions have consequences, and they should just leave Britney alone so they don't end up killing her.
Son, you don't seem to understand. Britney Spears has to die.
That is a Fight Club level plot twist right there. The town essentially tells Kyle that Britney is a human sacrifice, and their actions are intentionally aimed at ensuring that she dies.
To be built up and adored, and then sacrificed. For harvest.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this part lost a lot of people and contributed to the low rating this episode got. What they're actually referencing here is a film from 1973 called The Wicker Man. It's a horror mystery movie that involves sacrifice for harvest. A lot of people, including me, didn't get this reference at all. So Stan managed to get Britney on the train, but the driver recognizes her.
Looks just like the picture.
Oh man. I'm embarrassed for laughing at this one. The driver sells them out and the media is on their way. Stan tries to run away with her and we get a creepy scene of the town who are all in on it, even Stan and Kyle's parents. And Randy explains why he's never told Stan about the harvest.
We like to wait until kids are a little older to talk to them about things like condoms and ritualistic human sacrifice for harvest.
Another thing that was way funnier than it should have been for me. So something really cool about this scene is that we see a lot of one-off or rarely seen characters. We got the World of Warcraft neckbeard, the Super Adventure Club members, Gary's mom from the Mormon episode, the toy store clerk from the Tourette's episode. Okay, you get the point, there's like 50 more. The town grows impatient and decides that it's time to speed up the sacrifice. They do this by taking pictures of her. This part, and honestly a large portion of this episode, is a reference to The Lottery, which is a short story by Shirley Jackson. This is basically their parody of stoning someone to death, and after thousands of pictures, Britney Spears is no more.
I think it's time for us to leave the poor girl alone.
We then see that the harvest is very real in the South Park universe. All is well in the world. While at the grocery store appreciating the healthy-looking corn, a news report plays on the TV.
Though only 15 years old, is already on her way to being a major superstar.
Yeah, the foreshadowing here is insane. In my opinion, this episode is way ahead of its time. Matt and Trey could have easily made an episode mocking Britney and all the crazy stuff she was doing at the time, and plenty of fans would have ate it up. The fact they used it to call out the toxic celebrity culture at the time and then mocked us as a society was just brilliantly done. Of course, not everyone agrees with me here, and the episode ratings show that. So what are some reasons why people could have disliked this episode? Well, it gets incredibly stupid, and the satire is overblown at times. The headless Britney Spears jokes probably got old and uncomfortable for a lot of viewers. Another reason this episode might not have resonated with some people is their use of references. I mean, they used pretty obscure ones for this episode. Movies from the 70s, a short story from the 1940s, it's not really surprising a lot of fans missed these references. And the most likely reason is some people just straight up didn't get it at all. I've read comments of people wondering why they were so mean to Britney, which is hilarious considering they were mean to pretty much everyone else except for her. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disagreements as this is considered one of the most polarizing episodes. Feel free to leave a comment and share your opinion. To me, this is a solid middle of the pack episode. It wouldn't go anywhere near my favorite list, but there is so much I enjoy about it. If I had to pick one thing, it would be how they touched on Stan and Kyle's growth. They were the only people throughout the episode who learned from their mistakes. They felt like a reflection of the average person here. We all have probably enjoyed bashing on a celebrity for no reason other than the fact that they're famous. But listen, if Britney really did what she did in this episode, people who were ripping on her at the time probably would have shifted to empathy and regret. It perfectly calls out our hypocrisy. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. And as always, thank you guys for watching.